In 2007, a few years ago, I should say I'm an artist, and I started an art blog called Two Coats of Paint. And it's a daily digest of reviews, articles, and commentary about painting and related issues. And so what I wanted to talk about today is just my experience, one artist's experience in the blogosphere and what I've learned. Do we have any artists out there? Okay, well, for the rest of you, let me just explain that artists have generally the same goals. And they include getting gallery representation so that we can quit our full-time jobs and work in the studio. And the second is critical acclaim. Okay, so just a little bit more explanation about the art world. Here's the pyramid. Okay, you've got the artists at the bottom. There's a lot of us. We graduate from universities every spring, sometimes in December. Some are self-taught. So you've got the BFA programs, the MFA programs, the self-taught people, the BAs, the untrained. Lots of artists at the bottom of the pyramid. It's sort of like the food pyramid, okay? Then, as you go further up the pyramid, you have the galleries, the dealers, the critics, and so forth. And at the very top, what many artists aspire to in their early years is to have their work in a museum. But of course, there aren't all that many museums, and so the most likely outcome for all of those artists is failure. No matter how talented they are, or how hard they try, or how much effort they put in, it's just statistics. You're bound to fail. And so, I should explain that artists have had this sort of stovepipe version of success for many years, which start, vertical. You start with your studio, you get gallery representation, and then critical acclaim, and you build from one to the next. But now, many artists are realizing that this is not really a very productive way to look at your life or career. And so artists are becoming more extroverted. And the tools of the blogosphere and social networking media have made an incredible difference for us. And particularly, I should say, for me. Okay, so if you start to think a little bit more creatively about what your goal is it really that necessary to have gallery representation to do these other things? And I thought, well, no. Maybe what I really want is to have a voice and to be part of the dialogue and to, build some kind of community. So what I realized is it's about these other things, not so much having the gallery representation. So basically, I embraced this whole do-it-yourself philosophy. And the tools of Web 2.0 have really made that incredibly easy. But the thing is that do-it-yourself has that one word in the middle, and that is it. Like, what is it? So for many people, once you start to look beyond the whole notion that it is the gallery representation, you need to sort of figure out what that is. And a lot of people like to have weekly parties or organize TEDx or do some sort of salon or open up a gallery space. And for me, I have always loved reading, writing, and digital media. And so when I discovered Blogger and WordPress, it was like the world opened up. And I thought, well, this is pretty amazing. So basically, it took me an hour to sign up for my Blogger account. And this was the very first post back in, I think it was May 9th, 2007. And I remember the day so specifically, and I just felt so empowered. And it was just this simple little post, an excerpt from Art Forum magazine. And I sort of went back and forth. Should I post as Sharon? Or should I be Sharon Butler? Or should it be anonymous in some way? But the reality is, it doesn't really matter. You just have to start somewhere and then move forward. And so this was my first post, and originally I had no images, and it was just this very bare bones, and with links to the articles and the galleries. And so once you start thinking a little bit more creatively, you realize that that whole paradigm of the artist isolated alone in the studio breaks away, and it doesn't hold. And you think, well, you know what, I want to build community. So this can't just be about me. It can't just be self-promotion for my, painting or, So I started to think, well, who is my community? Who do I want to be in my community? For me, I want to include artists and critics, students, museums, galleries, and collectors. And so that's what I did. And so by running the articles, I would sort of bring critics into my community, and by posting about other artists, it was sort of this generous way to make connections with other artists. And I also learned, though, that you can't listen to what other people say. Because back in 2007, it was sort of before this whole mainstream media shakeout. And people were still suspicious of blogs, and they thought it was sort of the domain of the dissatisfied teenagers and unhappy housewives, and that it was basically exhibitionism. But I didn't listen, and I moved forward. And this is what the blog looks like today. This is a screen grab from just a few days ago. And basically, the center now has posts about different shows that are going on. And then on the right, you can see I'm now sponsored by an organization called Culture Pundits, which is a curated network of art blogs and media, mostly in New York. And we have some good advertisers who, we don't like to call them advertisers, we call them sponsors of the blog. And then on the right-hand side, I have a list of articles and other publications, not so much so that I can brag about that I've written for these other publications, but more to share the love, and to have my readers know about these small art journals or wherever it is. And you can't see this here, but then there's this blog roll that is very sort of extensive and lists lots of other artists and people who are involved in blogging, and I think that it's really important to be generous and to offer as many links as I can. And then on the left-hand side is just information about shows that I might be having. Again, not so much to brag about my shows, but to give a shout to the galleries, who have supported me. Okay, so who's reading? Is anybody reading? When I first started the blog, I didn't know, and it wasn't until a few months that somebody said, a blogger pal of mine said, well, you really should put a stat counter on your blog. And I thought, okay, a stat counter. And so I sort of figured out how to put the HTML code on there, and I put that in there. And I was flabbergasted, not just that people were reading, but that people were reading from around the world. And then I thought, well, this is really interesting. But the thing about stats is, they are kind of addictive. We can become really addicted. Does anybody have a blog out there? Probably everybody. You could spend hours looking at your stats and seeing if somebody's retweeted your tweets, and how many thumbs up did you get on Facebook, and did you have some comments? Okay, so stats are good, and they inspire confidence. But you just have to be careful, and this is the lesson I learned. I had to be careful not to get sort of swept up in the attention. And the other thing is that the blogosphere is full of contrary opinions, cynicism, snarkiness, and you kind of have to pick your fights carefully. I had a few dust-ups early on, and I realized that acrimony lives forever online. So, if you go and make a comment on somebody else's blog, it will always be there. So basically, the idea is you can't lose sight of your goals. My goal is not to get in fights and be really opinionated and pick on other people, but really to create community and engage in dialogue. And, the studio picture, to spend time in the studio. And the blog for me has really enriched my studio practice. I try to work with the people that I've known, be generous, support like-minded individuals. And another blogger, Joanne Matera, and I organized a group called Art Bloggers At, and we I think it's the first national organization for art bloggers, and so we organize gatherings and panel discussions at the different international art fairs. And here's one from New York at a fair called the Red Dot Fair. If anybody knows art blogs, there's Patty Johnson, who has Art Thanksgiving, and Joanne is there, and Carol Deal with Art Vent, Ed Winkleman, Carolina Miranda at Sea Monster. It's a really terrific group of people. But then also, I've met other people who are engaged in other types of community building projects, one of whom is Simon Draper, who started a project called Habitat for Artists, and he created these little studio shacks in Beacon, New York, and mine was the yellow one on the left, and I spent a summer working in there painting, and it was really a terrific experience, believe it or not, working in this 4x5 shed, and had an incredible impact on the direction of my work. And Simon has since dismantled this version of Habitat for Artists, but now it's he takes them all over the place and sets up little habitats so people can work in artist studios around New York. And then Austin Thomas, who's an artist who is interested in social sculpture, created a gallery slash exhibition, salon space slash international residency called Pocket Utopia in Bushwick, Brooklyn, which is a sort of up-and-coming arts community. And I had a residency there in 2009, and this is an image from a discussion I organized about politics after Obama took office, and we had a great discussion, and I wrote about it for several publications. It's been great writing for these publications because I started to do it just to raise awareness of the blog, but it's really sort of grown. And then I've also, of course, been invited to have more exhibitions simply because people know who I am. And so it's raised my visibility, and one of them was at a gallery called Platform in New York, and another was just this past summer at Storefront Gallery in Bushwick in Brooklyn. And again, never would have happened had I not been trying to build this community through the blog. And then because of that, because of the raised visibility, the exhibitions were covered in major media. This is a little piece from Time Out New York where they picked the show as the best painting show one week, and it was the opening at Platform was covered on Vernissage TV, which is a sort of channel for art videos. And so that was pretty gratifying. And then my final thing that I'm working on now is a sort of collaborative effort. I created a video for a presentation at the Aldrich Museum, and I thought, well, geez, I wish I could put this somewhere. And so I created Two Coats TV, starting with my video, and have since invited other artists and painters to submit their videos to show. And I hope this summer to work with some other painters, collaborating on videos for Two Coats TV. So, what I've learned is that Web 2.0 tools can equal power for artists, and I'm sure for lots of other people, but for artists in particular, it's been huge, because if you remember that pyramid, it's pretty bleak. And but to put it visually, we can all work together using these tools to make more room at the top. And that's really exciting. Thank you.